Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County City Hall. Today is September 23rd, and the time is now 1 o'clock. The purpose of our meeting today is to discuss the scrap tire management information session. By way of history, I want to let you know back on June the 1st of 2021, this commission passed a ordinance unanimously, a vote of 9-0 to pass this ordinance. And this is an ordinance of the Macon-Bibb County Commission to amend Chapter 12 and Chapter 22 of the Macon-Bibb County Code of Ordinances for the purpose of establishing a scrap tire management ordinance and for all other lawful purposes. It also, Macon-Bibb County finds that the improper management of scrap tire poses a threat to the environment, health, safety, and welfare, and economic progress of Macon-Bibb County and all of its citizens. So today is an educational component. This law has already passed and is presently in existence, but we want to make sure that all of our people at home, as well as our citizens, as well as business, we're aware of any changes that we made, and in particular the enforcement mechanism of that. So we're about to start enforcement of this action, which has several penalties that we're going to explain today. So we're going to ask our attorney, County Attorney Sarah Davis, to present a slideshow for you today. And at the end of the slideshow, if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll be happy to answer these because the enforcement will begin on this almost immediately. So this time I'm going to turn over to Sarah and we'll begin the slideshow.
Thank you. As the mayor said, I'm Sarah Davis. I'm an assistant county attorney here in the county attorney's office. If you specifically were invited here today by letter, it's because you were identified as a tire business here in Macon-Bibb County. We wanted to specifically invite those businesses here. If you're watching online and got a letter, it's the same thing. You got a letter because you're a tire business, and we wanted to make sure you are aware of these new rules. It's the county's intention to update everyone on this new law. This law came from what was just a small section of our pest control law. You can go to the next slide. Before, the only requirements under our code was that you couldn't store tires outside and let them retain water so that mosquitoes could breed. And so along with the county commissioners, we worked together to make this a little bit more robust and prevent the accumulation of scrap tires altogether. You can go to the next slide. Under the new version of a code, a scrap tire is a tire that is no longer suitable for its original intended purpose because of wear, damage, or defect. I wanted to point this out because this is different from a new tire. As you know, it's also different from a used tire. A used tire, several businesses here in the county sell used tires for to be put on cars to be used some more. It's not a used tire that can still be used. A scrap tire is one that is no longer able to be used. You can go to the next slide. Under section 22-181 of the new code section, anyone in charge or control of property, that means owners of property, tenants, business owners, anyone in charge or control of the property has a responsibility for handling and disposing the scrap tires on their property, even if those tires were dumped there. You can go to the next slide. I want to point out that if tires have been dumped on your property, you have 5 business days upon finding those tires to report that to our code enforcement department. What that's going to do is prevent you from being held liable for those tires. If you do not report them, you can be held liable for any fees associated with the county having to clean up those tires. You can go to the next slide. Our general rule, as far as storage and accumulation of scrap tires goes, is that you may not have more than 10 scrap tires on your property at any given time. That's just the basic general rule for everyone. There are some exceptions. You can have more than 10 if you are a solid waste disposal site, a tire retailer or publicly owned maintenance facility, a tire retreader, a licensed used motor parts dealer, a registered secondary metals recycler, or a privately owned vehicle maintenance facility. And finally, a scrap tire processor approved by the EPD. Those definitions are defined under Georgia law. I'm going to just make a quick reference to that. It's OCGA 12840.1G and G1. The reason I want to point that out is it's your responsibility to make sure that if you fall under that definition, you know which one you fall under and can point that out to our code enforcement department when they show up. Another exception is if you have a farm, you can have up to 100 scrap tires on your farm. They have to be for an agricultural purpose. You can't have a farm and just be hoarding scrap tires, but as long as they're being used for feeding troughs or for any identifiable agricultural purpose, you can have up to 100. You can go to the next slide. Everyone storing scrap tires have to meet 2 requirements. The first is that they must be drained of water. The second is that they must be stored in a covered or enclosed area to prevent the accumulation of water. This is a throwback to the mosquito law. We don't want breeding grounds for mosquitoes, so the tires will hold water, and we don't want standing water in our county. If you're going to have more than 10 tires, a couple of things. One, you have to have an exception from the page, from the slide before. You have to meet one of those requirements. The second is you may be asked by code enforcement or the health department to demonstrate how your storage is keeping water from being accumulated in those tires. They might have to show that you have a tarp around the outside to prevent rain from coming in sideways. There's just going to be, you might have to show or demonstrate to them how your storage method prevents water. You can go to the next slide. As far as dumping, it is unlawful to dump tires anywhere in Macon-Bibb County. That includes the streets, the waterways, dumpsters, or private property. You can't dump tires anywhere unless the place you dump them meets the following requirements. The property has been designated by Macon-Bibb County and the Environmental Protection Division. That is a branch of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources for the collection and disposal of scrap tires. The tires are placed in a designated receptacle. That means that the receptacle is identified as a place where you can put scrap tires. It shouldn't hold anything else. And finally, the property owner has a valid solid waste handling permit or approval by the EPD or county. The valid solid waste handling permit is going to be something handed out by the EPD. Short of that, they sometimes give temporary licenses to have scrap tires for like a amnesty event. So short of that, there's going to be permission by the EPD or county. It won't be absent either of those things. There will be either a permit or approval. People in control of property cannot allow others to dump tires on their property without authorization. I want to point out again that if tires have been improperly dumped on your property, you have 5 business days to alert code enforcement after you find it. We want owners and those in control of property to be looking out for their property and paying attention and looking for dump sites. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. This is the compliance section. This is the section that mostly applies to our tire businesses here in the county. I want to read a couple of these definitions. First, a scrap tire generator is any person who generates scrap tires other than an individual who generates them and maintaining his own personal vehicles. So if you're a business that's pulling tires off of a car and those tires are no longer being used, you're generating scrap tires. A scrap tire carrier is any person engaged in picking up or transporting scrap tires not otherwise exempted in the Georgia Rules of Solid Waste Management for the purpose of removal to a scrap tire processor, end user, or disposal facility. So scrap tire carrier, just starting at the beginning of that definition, if you're picking up or transporting tires, you're likely a scrap tire carrier. Finally, I want to point out the bottom one. A retail tire dealer is a person actively engaged in the business of selling new replacement tires or used tires. This isn't someone dealing with scrap tires necessarily. It's anyone actively engaged in the business of selling new replacement tires or used tires. You can go to the next slide. All the rules in this section come from Georgia law. These have already been applicable to you. If they are applicable, we've put them into our Macon-Bibb County code for a notice so that you're on notice and so that we can add enforcement by our local code enforcement. Before, the sheriff was able to enforce this in the state, and now we're adding this to our county code so that code enforcement and our officers here, including our solid waste inspector, will be able to come to your business to enforce these laws. You can go to the next slide. Scrap tire generators, again, anyone who generates scrap tires, have a couple of requirements. First, you have to obtain a scrap tire generator number from Georgia EPD. Each location of your business needs a separate number. It's going to be a different ID number for every single location you have. So even if you're John Doe's tire business and you have 3 different locations across Macon-Bibb County, every separate location will need to be registered and have a separate number. The second major requirement is you must maintain a manifest of scrap tires that have been shipped or removed from your business within the last 3 years. This is a form that you can get from the EPD website. I've also provided them up front. You can also get them, we'll email them to you if you request them from our email address, commission@maconbibb.us. It's a form. It's going to have spots for every one of the things you see listed on the slide for your name and your ID number, for the number and total tonnage of scrap tires, the name and permit number of the carrier, the date of transportation, the destination, and then signatures for all 3 parties. That is the party generating, the party transporting, and the end place they're going to land up, which is the processor. If an enforcement officer comes to your business to request your generator number or your manifest, Macon-Bibb County Code now says that you have to provide that to them. You also have to ensure that your scrap tires are being approved by an approved scrap tire carrier. That's one that's licensed or registered with the EPD. You can go to the next slide. These rules are applicable to tire carriers. That's the people transporting tires. To carry any scrap tires, you have to either get a permit from EPD and a decal that's going to go on your window, or fall into a category below. You can be a municipal solid waste collector, a private individual, a company transporting the company's own tires to a processor, a tire retailer transporting its own used tires, if you can provide proof of purchase, any person transporting tires collected as part of an organized site cleanup activity, or the government. So you either have to have that EPD decal on your car driving it or fall under one of these exceptions. You can go to the next slide. This is regarding tire handling businesses. I want to point out that this is a different definition than a retail tire dealer. This is any person or any business that derives 10% or more of its gross income from the sale, processing, transporting, or disposal of tires. If you are a tire handling business, you have separate requirements from retail tire dealers and from processors and all those requirements. These is in addition to those requirements. You have to keep an inventory of all new and used tires that are received by the business, sold to a customer, sent to another tire handling business, or shipped to an approved processor. Upon request by an enforcement officer, you'll have to provide that inventory report to code enforcement. They're going to be coming by businesses looking for all these things that we've mentioned. They're going to be looking for your manifest. They're going to be looking for your generator number. And they're going to be looking for your inventories so that we can track where these tires are going and make sure they're not ending up in illegal dump sites. Next slide. This is the enforcement provision. Enforcement measures can now be taken by the sheriff's office, code enforcement, the solid waste inspector, or any law enforcement officer, agency, or official of the state. Violators will receive notice of the violation and will be allowed 10 days to remediate the situation. This is a common way that code enforcement handles code enforcement measures. If the county removes offending tires after the 10-day period, the violator will be subject to a $25 per tire fee for that removal. So this is not the penalty portion. This is if we have to come up and clean out your dumped tires or your illegally or improperly placed tires, it's $25 per fee for that removal. That just offsets the cost of the removal. You will also be subject to fines and penalties up to $1,000 and 180 days per violation, and that's going to be imposed by municipal court. Each count or every day of recurring violation is a separate count, and every count is subject to a $1,000 penalty or up to 180 days in jail. So that can really add up. So please make sure that you're following the code sections and quickly remediating any issues you find or that code enforcement finds, because I don't want those fines or penalties to add up. And you can go to the last slide. Any questions?
Thank you, Attorney Davis. This time, we'll entertain any questions for those members that are here today or at home, online. This is the second educational meeting that we've had this week. Our notice is to make sure this is a transparent process and that we inform the businesses as well as citizens about the possibilities, but more importantly, about the compliance. As many of you know, we had an announcement yesterday about Clean Streets Matters. We've suffered over the last several months, probably several years, battling illegal dumps, which costs our community valuable resources that we have to redirect that could be used for better things. And a lot of those tend to be tires. And it's usually not the one or twos that give us the problem. It's the 1 or 2 hundreds of tires that accumulate on illegal dumping sites. So this is our attempt to address that issue. It will be very expensive for someone for $25 a tire if we have to haul those off. Certainly it could be loss of your business license, potential jail time, and other fines. So we want to let the public know and the business know that we're serious about this. This ordinance has passed and the enforcement will begin immediately. So we can expect someone from the Sheriff's Department, code enforcement, or other law enforcement agencies to go to these businesses and request manifest to make sure that we track the tire from the time it becomes a scrap tire through a proper disposal to the end location. Because many times people will pay a third-party provider that may not be reputable, and instead of taking that tire to the end user, they dump those in our community. So I appreciate everyone from being here today. If you continue to have questions, you can email us your questions as well as post it online, and we'll be happy to get back with you if we have your information. So if there's no other business that brings us here today and no additional questions, this educational session is hereby over.